TJ Recupero, I'm on the school building committee, and there's no microphone, I assume, so I'll speak up. Got you, Bob. Starting in 2010, the town did a facilities master plan, studying all of the town buildings, seeing what needs were existing, what need to be corrected, what it would take to correct them, estimates and everything else. That's been updated several times over the interim period. South School was one of the most in need, one of the buildings most in need, in around 2012 or so. I don't think it says, but there was an initial statement of interest sent to the MSBA, because what they do is they look at a building's need, a school building's need, and then they accept your statement of interest, put certain conditions on it, and tell you a process of going through a feasibility study. That's where we are right now. So since back as early as 2010, all the way forward, town's been submitting SOI, statement of interest, for the South School. There was one that was submitted along with the high school. It was chosen, it was decided at the time, I think both by MSBA and the school, because they accepted the SOI for the high school. It was decided that there was more bang for the buck in that project, so they went with that. The need for the South School continued. And of course, the building became older and older and needed certain upgrades back then, still needs them today. In fact, needs them even more today. So beginning in 2023 to present, after the MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority, accepted the town's statement of interest, they invited us into the feasibility study period. And since we first met in November 2023, first step we did, by the way, is we went back to the MSBA and we asked them to increase our enrollment number, which would allow us more money. I think everybody does that pretty much, and we did on the high school too. They rejected us, but on this school they actually increased our enrollment numbers. So that was a good pause at the beginning of the process. We hired an owner's project manager, Vertex. I think Chin is here from Vertex. Chin. Next part of the process was hiring a designer, DRA, Carl Franceschi, who was involved in the high school, as was Vertex, then Compass Project Management. And we came up with a recommendation to bring to the school committee and the select board saying, this is what we presented to resolve the deficiencies that were identified as far back as 2010 for the South School building. That's the process all the way from then till today. And in that interim, we've of course done a high school. This building has become older, and there was some deferred maintenance in this because, of course, we could throw a ton of money into this building and certain repairs. We could put, like at the West School, for example, we did windows. That was through an MSBA program, an accelerated repair program. We could do that. But if we do that and everything else is falling apart, it was money that was probably not well spent. So we kept submitting statements of interest on this building, kept continuing. And it was, of course, maintained, but the biggest repairs that it's in need of continued and degraded over that time. So here we are today. We have the recommendation for what we presented. It's a consolidated school for two student populations, the one from the Wilkins School and the South School combined into one larger school on this site. This site meaning about probably half a mile away from where we are. And I think it's a good project, and I think it's a good recommendation. If we can't answer any questions that you have and justify it with our findings throughout that feasibility study period, shame on us, but I think we can. And I hope everybody here tonight, DRA, Carl Franceschi, Jim Lynn from Vertex Management, Vertex Project Management, of course, Dr. Baeta from the schools, Catherine Weiss from the school committee. If we can't all justify our decision, shame on us, but I think we can. And I welcome any questions, as does anyone else.
The new Stoughton Elementary School project started.
Sorry, let me go back there. Go quick there in the draw. Didn't mean that. There. The more specific timeline, as you know, we're at a point where we just completed schematic design. We formed the budget so that you could have a good both construction cost and project cost to deliberate on at town meeting and ultimately at a debt exclusion. And you can see we're at the very right-hand end of this timeline. We have the town meeting, special town meeting coming up next week, and then a debt exclusion vote. Is the date? We just have June 24th there, but it's
tentatively scheduled for June 11th.
11th. We're trying to nail down that specific date of the 11th for the debt exclusion vote, if it's successful at the town meeting.
The new Stoughton Elementary School project started in December 2022 and now faces key points of approval in spring 2024. The MSBA will review the project's scope and budget on April 24th.
Which they
With
did last
MSBA
week.
approval, the project's scope and budget will go before a special town meeting in Stoughton in May. With town meeting approval, the entire project would then be placed on the ballot in a town election in June. If the project clears each of these key points of approval, the project would go through final design and bidding, with construction beginning in September 2025 to open the new elementary school in the fall of 2027. We believe a new elementary school will improve the quality of our education and provide long-term value for our community. This plan also consolidates our elementary schools from 5 to 4, which we believe will provide more flexibility to manage the growth of our community and smooth out a school redistricting process that will have to take place. We've prepared another short video about the benefits we see to consolidating our elementary schools. You can see that, get all key information on the project, and watch past recordings and public forums on the school building update page at the Stoughton Public Schools website.
So we thought we'd use that quick, short video to explain some of those key points. There are more of those videos available on the project website. As it mentioned, we recommend you're investigating those if you have further questions that don't get answered here tonight. I won't go into too many of the deficiencies of this existing building since we have the opportunity to tour it yourselves, other than to say, as TJ mentioned, that it was identified as needy, over 10 years ago, and the town has maintained it, but really with sort of Band-Aids going forward without, significant capital repairs, knowing that this kind of a project, either a full-blown renovation or a replacement of a new school was coming. And so there are significant issues here that you'll see as we walk around. In terms of the district too, it's been important to note that this project is not just about the South School, district in the town. That one, it is consolidating from 5 to 4, which will help relieve some of the overcrowding at the other schools, for one thing. But also the school itself, as we'll point out a little bit, is being designed as a community school so that it can be used after hours and weekends and summertime by the entire community in a variety of ways. So that's an important point. And the other schools are not being neglected either. There are ongoing projects to improve the security, the entrances at the other elementary schools, to improve the air conditioning and heating systems at the other schools too, are ongoing. So you can see some of them listed there. New playground at the Hanson, for instance. And then these projects, when they are accepted into the state school building authorities pipeline, as it's called, it's important that the projects begin focusing on the educational requirements. And Stoughton did a great job of producing what's called an educational program before any design was started, without thinking as to whether it was going to be a new school or an addition renovation. What are some of the important things? So the principals kind of led the way and identified some of these key points. That the school be divided with the youngest children in sort of a separate area of the building from the older. That we think about utilizing the outdoor spaces and fit into the site somewhat the way the current South School does. That it become a community facility. And that there be spaces, we call them collaboration spaces or meeting spaces, kind of outside the typical classroom so that as much as possible the entire school is used. These alcoves and breakout areas off of the corridors, for instance, so that we get the most bang for the buck, so to speak, and all the square footage that's being built is used as much as possible for educational purposes. And that the Learning Commons, which is kind of the evolution of the library in schools these days, becomes the heart of the school, is important. And then STEM, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. That part of the curriculum, that there be a dedicated space for that in the school. It does not exist in the other schools currently, but we have the opportunity here to create that kind of dedicated space in a new school. So we didn't just settle on automatically doing a new school from the beginning. We did look at a variety of options, more than what's even shown up here, but these were the sort of short list that was narrowed down to, which included an addition renovation to this building, which is quite challenging to do. It requires modular classrooms to empty out a portion of the building. It's a very disruptive process. If you can imagine, that's really the only access, the way you walked in tonight from the roadway. And so imagine a construction crew every day coming in that way as well, trying to get access to work on a part of the building at the same time that buses or cars are dropping off students. It would be very disruptive. But we did do a scheme for addition renovation. But we also looked at new construction on the so-called Line Lumber site, which is a parcel of land just up Park Street. As the crow flies, it's probably even less than half a mile beyond the backyard of this school. But the town acquired that parcel. It is town-owned. They acquired it somewhere in the, I think it was early 1960s, for school purposes. It's remained wooded and has a few trails on it and so forth for the last 50 years, but now the time has come, it makes good use to investigate that for a new school. And we did several different configurations of possible new school. The one that ultimately was selected was this so-called pinwheel design. And you'll sort of see why that makes the most sense in responding to the educational program. That's where it's located. If you can see the existing South School, see if my cursor works here. There it is. So we're right here, right now. Behind the school is the athletic field. There is a piece of private property, and then there's the Line Lumber site. And it's accessed directly from Park Street. And this is the enlargement of it on the right here, where the red arrow is the access point in and out of the site. And the white building there is the pinwheel design for the school. You can see that one of the immediate improvements over what's here today is the vehicular circulation at the site. There's a good parking area, there's a good drop-off loop, there's a separate loop for buses, there's even a separate loop for kindergarten parents around the back and coming around to the side to queue up and drop off their children there. And then the other proposal that you can see going up to the north, the top of the plan, is an emergency access drive, because it's prudent, we think, and the district agrees, to always have a second way out of a site. If a tree should fall across the road or something like that, we need access in and out. But it would be gated at both ends, both by the parking lot and by Haynes Road up there, so that it's not used day to day by any means. It could be used for pedestrians, it could be used for bicycles to access the site, but not for vehicles on a day-to-day basis. There we are. Just a little closer up view of one of the advantages of this design was the way it incorporates the outdoor space into the building. So you get like a paved play area right off the cafeteria. You get these playgrounds that are specific for each age group. The kindergarten, younger children have their own playground from the older children. There's space for an outdoor classroom in very close proximity to the building. And it's all inside of that fire lane driveway that's going all around the building. And one of the community features is the outdoor space as well. So there's a legitimate, what's called under age 12, U12 soccer field. And there's some paved area that could include a new pickleball court. Those are primarily for the older adults in the community, not for the school-age children necessarily, but they're incorporated into the program there. And then the building is going to be very sustainable. First of all, it's a requirement for state buildings to be quote-unquote green buildings. but this project, like many others, will go above and beyond that, both because it makes good sense, it makes good financial sense to lower energy costs and future operating costs, but also the state has what's called an incentive program that if you do make it meet these certain criteria, energy efficient and good indoor air quality, you actually get 4 additional reimbursement points. So I forget the exact reimbursement for Stoughton. I think it's somewhere around 56 maybe percent. Do you know, Jim?
59
59?
Base rate, and then we have a 4 point.
Right, so we'll go from 59 to 63. And so that those 4 percentage points on a project that's, almost $100 million construction cost is, equal to $4 million of additional grant from the state. And it won't cost $4 million to upgrade the building to achieve that. So it is a good deal, both for, first-time cost savings and long-term operating cost savings for the district. And those are some of the sustainable features that will be incorporated into the project. The other thing that shows up here in this is a view of the entrance. On the right is the day-to-day entrance for students and teachers into the school, right by the administration wing of the building. But on the left is a dedicated community entrance. So after hours, the entire sort of right side of the building could be locked off, and the community could go directly in, like you did tonight, into a cafeteria or into a gymnasium if it's being used after hours or on weekends. And there's the layout of the plan, floor plans. The blue areas are so-called classroom neighborhoods, and each one of those wings represents a grade. So there are 6 of them. It's a 3-story building. So there's kindergarten and first grade on the ground floor, then second and third, and then 4th and 5th. As you get older, you move up in the building, so to speak. And the yellow wing of the building there are the cafeteria and the gymnasium. That's sort of that community wing. And then the 4th wing to the top, the light green, is the administration wing. So there again, you can see the floor plans. And notice each of the classroom wings too, they're not just rectangular with a corridor down the middle, which is pretty typical of older buildings. But nowadays, as we said, we wanted to make use of those spaces. And so the sort of alcoves off of those corridors are used for instructional space. They're used for breakout space if some kids are working on a project together. With supervision and just outside the doors of the classrooms, they can make use of those spaces. And we'll show you some renderings of what it would look like. And then in the center of the building is that library learning commons, which is the heart of the school. And it's right off of the entrance as you come in, and it's a multi-story space, so it really connects the whole school together. And it's sort of filled with natural light as well. And you'll see some of those views in a second here. We have a video which we can sort of be able to talk through here. So this is a computer model, obviously, that we built, and you can fly around it, then we'll go inside it too. So you can see it's a 3-story building, but it's broken down in such a way we hope it does not feel overwhelming to young children, and it fits in. Fortunately, it's a wooded site. We're not like next to houses or anything like that immediately. It's off separate. You can see the entrances, whether you arrive by bus or get dropped off. There's this entry plaza, and all the students enter in the same door every day, right by the administration, and right by a check-in window where visitors can be screened before they enter the building. That's the same kind of upgrade that's happening elsewhere. And then when you enter, you come into this learning commons, which, as we said, has a main stair and is multi-story. And then turning to the left and going down this corridor is you might call it the community wing of the building, where there's a gymnasium with an adult-sized basketball court. So as we said, it could be used by, say, the high school JV team if they wanted to come here, or a basketball league on Saturday. There's a few bleachers there as well. And then across the hall next to that is the cafeteria, like this space, with a stage, so that it can be used for performances, as well as day-to-day for breakfast and lunch and before and after school space. One thing to notice too, these columns you see in here, those are actual wood columns. They're not steel like this building right there, but because it is a school in the woods, and we really wanted to sort of pick up on that theme, and it's a much warmer feel, and we think appropriate for the kids. This is that STEM space on the second floor, overlooking. It's really part of that Learning Commons. It's a resource area where kids can do projects and so forth. And then these are those classroom wings with the breakout spaces. There are lockers here as well, and access into classrooms. And just to show a typical classroom, there are window seats and some variety of spaces in there too. In the kindergarten room at the youngest level, there's access directly to the bathrooms for those kids. That's a night view there. And then just to sort of share with you, you may have some of this information already in your packet, but the cost of all this, because we've gone through schematic design, we were able to put together a reasonably sort of robust set of plans and specifications that two independent cost estimators could look at. So they developed both the construction cost of the building, and then our project team put together the so-called soft costs, above and beyond the bricks and mortar and so forth. There's furniture, there's equipment, there's computer networks, there are fees, and there's contingencies all built in to get to a total project budget of $114 million. But of that, 47 million of it, 47.2 will be supplied by the state. That's their grant, and that's done on a sort of pay-as-you-go basis too. So each month during construction, the town will submit an invoice and get reimbursed within a month or so of that. So even though you have to approve the $114 million at town meeting, you don't truly have to borrow that much money generally. You just borrow as much as you need going forward because you get reimbursement. So the town share is the $66.5 million. And just to show, there's some calculations based on available information of what the tax impact would be on the average household in Stoughton. Somewhere between $400 and $420 per year with those baked in assumptions. You know, we have to assume sort of an interest rate on the borrowing. We have to assume, you know, a time period on the borrowing, and you know, what the town share will be. So that's the calculations there. And I'm sure if there are more questions on that, people smarter than me can respond on the financial side of this. But it was done in consultation with folks in
Is that
Town
slide,
Hall.
is that slide in the town meeting book?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great.
And then just to, you know, there's always the question of what happens if it gets voted down. The important thing is that you won't get that grant of $46 million from the state if the town doesn't approve it. The feasibility study will be reimbursed for, you know, what's already been expended, but that'll be the end of it. And then, as you can see, and you will see in the tour as you walk around, if this district chooses to hang on to this building going forward, you know, there have to be some rethinking as to what investments the town wants to make in this building. And it's not zero. As you'll see, there's certainly work to be done in doing this. And just the cost to repair the things that were broken added up to in the vicinity of $25 to $30 million. And that doesn't mean you need to spend that tomorrow, you know, all at one shot, but within the next 5 to 10 years, that's how much it would cost just to repair and bring things up to standards in this building. That would not be expanding it, that would not improve the educational space, it would just be repairing, and you'd end up with the same spaces you have today, basically. They'd just be safer and brighter and more energy efficient than the current building, but that would be a decision that town would have to go through. And then, you know, you try to bring this back in the future, as everyone knows, costs are, you know, going up always, and would be more expensive in the future than this project is today. And the idea, partly, of of the consolidation and redistricting was that by repurposing the Wilkins School for potentially preschool program, that sort of takes care of that one building, and having 4 elementary schools in town, this larger project kind of takes care of 2 buildings at once. So it's a bit more expensive now, obviously, in the present, but in the longer term, it was seen as a better value for the town to undertake this, obviously with the significant state grant as part of the school building program. That's part of it. So I think that's it.
I think we can go.
Unless, TJ, you just want to wrap it up again with the community benefits that we like to mention, but we're certainly here to take questions and to give a tour too.
Yeah, I'll be brief, because this is something that I've chimed down about. I'm going to lean if nobody minds. I look at this, and I think the majority of the building committee does also. I can't speak for everyone, but we look at it like a project that if we invest in it, it can't just be a building used by 500 plus students half the year. It's got to mean more than that to the community. And I think this falls into a greater master plan, I'll use that term generically, that the town has had, that the town policymakers have had for this area of town, generally going back probably 10 years. The sewer, for example, doing a zoning corridor study, for example, focusing on the Campanelli Drive area for more revenue in the town, things like that. There's also been a little growth in this area recently. And I think this falls into that area. If you look at, for recreation space also, there's really, outside of the Cedar Hill Golf Course, there's really nothing south of Halloran Park until you get to the Brockton Town Line. Between Halloran Park and the town line, this would be a good area for the southern part of Stoughton as a general community area. And I think for the investment, you have to think in those terms as opposed to just the school. Again, I speak for myself, but I think the majority of the committee probably, probably agrees. It's also, you know, I've looked at a dozen different ways of how you can tie a project like this into things like property values. Tough to quantify. There's no way to say that if you do build this school, property values will increase. I think you can say that if you let your schools deteriorate, buildings deteriorate, and then hopefully not, but then the education that follows, property values are tied to that. So this is, in some sense, is holding back the tide, that we have to constantly maintain our buildings and facilities of schools so that we can always maintain that level of service and keep our general property values. Even for those who don't have children in the schools, we can maintain those. And that's how I like to look at it, because I don't have kids in the school. I worked on the high school project with these good people also. And, you know, I've thought about that school the same way, is that it's got to mean more to the community than just a school building and students 6 months a year. And I'll just close out with this, is that I'm encouraged that I've heard a strong level of support for this, but I'm glad that I see a larger crowd. We were doing these all along over the last year and a half, and we weren't getting crowds for these public forums. It's good to see so many people, because the negatives that I hear scattered amongst the positive comments, I can tell you, did not show up at any of the forums, because some of the criticisms are not even remotely tied to the project that we recommended. I'll give you one example that I keep hearing, because it drives me nuts, is that I keep hearing, and I see it posted online, people saying that, you know, why do we have to do such an extravagant building? Well, you know, we're not the only elementary school, not the only K through 5 elementary school being built in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And if you track the costs of ours and compare it to everyone else's, we're right in line. The only thing that might be high, that is higher, for this project than any others is site work, because we're constrained on access by some wetlands that's going to cost us some money for any building we build. Whether it be a fire station or a public safety building, when they were proposing it, a single school, not a consolidated school, if that goes in, it's going to be a pretty hefty site work cost for everyone. And that's a fixed cost that nobody's going to have to deal about, and that's built into this project. and anyone behind us. So if you hate this school because you think it's extravagant, I'm here to tell you it's not. You can look at the numbers yourself. The only thing that raises our cost a little higher is the cost to get into the buildable area. I didn't choose that. Someone did back in 1963, I think, whenever it was, that this would be a school. It's a great area for a school. It's just not the easiest to get into. So I'm glad people are here. I appreciate any questions you have. I just hope that when you criticize it, or when people criticize it, they criticize it for things after having heard the whole project, and not just because they like it for some unknown reason that we never talked about. So thank you all for coming. Welcome any questions, please. Karen?
Why lockers in a grade school?
Well, in the youngest grades, the kindergarten, there aren't lockers, there are cubbies. But generally we find that older kids, they have a coat, they have a backpack, they want to store it. It's best to store it in a locker, not necessarily in the classroom, on the floor, on the back of their chair. It makes it a little neater, a little safer.
I was thinking of adding more stress on the teachers, having kids come in and out. Because kids, at that age, they're in and out of their, well, we didn't have backpacks when I went to school, but when my kids went to school, they were in and out of their backpacks a lot. And I can't see the kids going out into the hallway, going into their locker because they forgot something.
I think the principals might speak, but usually the kids are pretty well organized, so the teachers make sure they're organized to take what they need in from the locker.
I can talk to that. We have lockers solely at the Wilkins. That's all that the kids have ever known. And they put their belongings in the locker in the morning, and they're there until they get them out at dismissal. So the kids aren't going in and out to access their lockers. It's solely for a place to hang their coat and their empty backpack once they take their stuff out of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the fact that there was wetlands involved. If you've gone before the Conservation Commission to get their approval for whatever design you have.
We haven't formally, because we're not, the design and the plans aren't developed enough technically to do that yet. That's one of the first tasks we'll do once, and if it passes at town meeting. But we have had informal meetings, a couple of them, I think 3 meetings, with the conservation agent to discuss the issues involved. And we've got civil engineers and wetland specialists on our team that, help flag the wetlands and help us, make sure we're not closer than we're supposed to be in terms of earthwork and grading and so forth. So we have a high degree of confidence that we can, perform the plan that is being put forth, but we haven't formally submitted it yet.
All right, my second question, if you don't mind, is this. You showed a 3-wing building going up
3
3
stories.
stories, which I understand for protection or whatever you want to call it, exposure to rain, snow, sleet, all that is easier to do with a building that's this high versus one that's this wide. Understand that. The question that goes along with this, have there been any schools, K through, 5 right now, that were built within the last couple of years that have the basic configuration of 3 stories anywhere else in the state or in the New England region?
There are, yeah.
Can we, let me continue, I'm sorry, I don't mean to step on you. Can we look at the plan, instead of building something so extravagant, I think this is a great looking building, especially, I'm thrilled about the gym, you have no idea. And that's another question for later. But are there any other buildings that were built to accommodate this grade level that go up rather than wings like this anywhere else?
There are numerous ones, not just by our firm, but by others, that are 3 stories. There's one in Andover that has a very similar plan, if you actually want to see a similar pinwheel, plan with wings like this. But we found too in our experience that, first of all, keeping the building compact reduces the foundation costs and the roof costs. And as was explained, we have very challenging site here. So the smaller we can keep the footprint, it helps keep those site costs down somewhat. in that regard. And so, and the other thing is trying to keep a building from sprawling too much. You might say, well, why don't we just go to 2 stories instead of 3? We found, again, we actually did a few studies a few years back, taking, say you have 100,000 square feet of building, to put it in 2 stories is more expensive than to put that same 100,000 square feet in 3 stories. Once you invest in stairs, we have an elevator, we have, boys and girls rooms that stack vertically. It's actually more economical to do 3 stories than 2 stories.
Right.
And to do this in 1 story would be extreme. Kids would be a long ways from say, the principal's office or the library in the heart of the building. It just gets to be sprawling.
Well, if you actually take a look at the town of Easton, that just built an elementary school in their educational complex. I don't know if everybody knows where it is, but it's one long, extravagant building that they just put in. A hell of a lot of roof exposure.
A lot of foundation.
My feeling was that if we had the same basic idea, concept of what we want, and agreed with you on the 3 stories, et cetera, that somebody else has already designed this building somewhere, and we can either plagiarize or borrow their plans and utilize the same thing and save the construction cost or the planning end, the design factor.
Can I answer this? Because I did online today to someone else. It's been suggested a number of times that we just borrow someone else's plans. Matter of fact, at town meeting last year, someone asked, can't we just go to Brockton and take one of their plans? Only one way to do that. The only way to do that is through the MSBA, unless someone can correct me, but the only way to do it is through the MSBA's model school program. Otherwise, you have procurement laws. You have to go out and hire an architect, an OPM, like you would any other procurement contract in the town. So we can't go down and just steal plans and bring them over. We also need the architect with them so that they can adapt it to our educational program, which was approved by MSBA. We have different educational priorities than some other district. The building might fit our needs. The educational program has to be tailored to the design. We need the architect to come with the plans for that reason. The other thing is, if you go on the MSBA website, you can look at a list of available lands under their model school program. There's like 35 or so, I'm guessing. About half of them are elementary schools. The other half would be middle schools and high schools. We can't use those, set those aside. So of the 15 plus or minus plans that are left on that list that we can just borrow from and use, they're broken down, elementary school plans that we can use, they're broken down into different categories. This one is built for a student population of 700 to 900 kids. Because the average school, by the way, these days, over the last 3 years, I think it is 620 students. Our school is still smaller than the average school, but of the list of the 15 or so schools on the model school list that we could borrow from, there are some that are designed for K through 4, some that are designed for 3 through 6, some that are designed from pre-K to grade 4, or grade 2, or grade 3. You look for a K to 5 school, and then you find one that fits your enrollment numbers, ours in this case, about 515 if I remember, or 50, whatever it is. There are about 2 that you could, by my estimation, somebody may disagree, that you could potentially adapt to this educational program in this project. Now, to go through that, we looked at it. We have to look at it. I think we have to look at it, right? We have to look at that option. We looked at it. And there was no cost incentive to do that. And it didn't, without dramatically torturing our educational program, which had already been approved by MSBA. So what we presented, and you used, George, the word extravagant. I almost threw my shoe at you, but I'd rather you use the word beautiful because I do think it's beautiful. I mean, we did, I think, the best we could in line with what every other, and we did some fantastic things. I don't want to be too wordy, but all the wood you've seen fits this school in the woods theme, softer materials. It's also structural. There's a cost savings attached to that. All that wonderful wooded areas around there that we're keeping. Oh, we won't be landscaping all that, we'll be keeping it. It's a school in the woods. We've taken advantage of everything we could to make a better school without borrowing someone else's crappy plans.
Just as a backup too, there currently is no model schools program that's going on through MSBA.
They don't
We just,
do it in-
they're really not doing it right now. And much of it has to do with, I just did a renovation addition project in my last district and did a K-12 that I started in a prior district. Part of it is this constant tweaking that's taking place on the size of the buildings, right? How much money you're gonna spend on technology 15 years ago was actually more than they're allowing now, right? Same thing with the sizes of the gyms, same thing with the size of the cafeterias or cafetoriums. Stoughton High School, perfect example of the high school auditorium, where everybody wanted it to be larger, and in that time period, it was a pushback from the MSBA, no, we don't allow for that. Or you can go out at your own cost and not get reimbursed a penny because you're going outside of the scope of the MSBA requirement. So the MSBA has you from the perspective of the SOI all the way until the voters approve it, and then after that. The other day, Whittier Tech was voted out of the queue because their voters didn't pass it. It's a $400 million regional vocational high school. They are now out of the queue. Who knows when they're going to come back into the queue? And they still have to figure out what they're going to do with a building that's one of the oldest in the state as a voc school. The second part that I think is important is when I looked at all of the current projects that are taking place that are elementary projects, they all do one thing. They all are running away from neighborhood schools because of the long-term costs. Stoughton's been a neighborhood elementary district the entire time that I've known it. We built 5 elementary schools in Stoughton in 16 years. Haven't done one since. Right? We did additions, but we haven't done one since. So that's the last 2 were 70 and 71, the Gibbons and the Dodd. And since then, nothing. Now, we have done windows, roofs, some HVAC systems, and we're currently looking at finalizing the HVAC system at the Gibbons School. So now the Dodd and the Gibbons would actually have most of their building, not all of it, with air conditioning. All paid for, by the way, through grant funding from the federal government, part of the ESSER funding that we received.
Dr. Paella, can you explain the special ed and the EL?
Yeah.
Need that
Right.
is specific design to them.
Right. So we're currently at just under 3,800 students in the district. We are projected to go over 4,400 over the next 10 years. Right. We are growing again. We've never had 7,000 students in this district. We've always had right around that 4,000. I'm a class of 88. We were closer to 42, 4,300. A couple of years we broke 4,500. But literally, we've been in a district that has been in that 3,500 to 4,000 range for well over a decade. We are also, do not have a single elementary school that actually has, from the beginning, a support services for our special education and our growing EL departments, right? We have had to, in some way, shape, or form, retrofit every single one of our K-8 schools to support special education. Take a classroom and divide it in thirds, divide it in half, put in a classroom, put in a bathroom, put in special lighting, put in a timeout area, it's all been retrofitted. In this particular case, we're starting our programs going into the 21st century. Literally, it's 2024. It'll be 27 years into the 21st century that Stoughton's going to be building a new elementary school. And we all know it's cost. I have parents, they live in town. We know the big discussion is cost. What I think this project has done that's really, really important is think long-term about not having to continue to build new elementary schools. Think about because remember, if you build 5 schools in 16 years, you're looking at least 3 of them being totally brand new over the next 50 years. We know we can't afford that. So this plan takes a look at consolidating, number 1. Number 2, we're not looking to build, and again, there'll be somebody else in this seat and the chair seat and so on, but as elected officials for the school committee and myself, the way we see it right now today is we're looking at probably elementary schools such as the Daw and the Gibbons being renovated and added to, but not new construction, which the cost is going through the roof. And the last part that I think is really important in this is the MSBA grant per square footage reimbursement just went up by over $160 a square foot. They have never done that. They've always gone up $30 and $27. But what happened with the economy a few years ago, all of the projects that were in the queue being built, they were all $20 million, $30 million, $40 million short. So the MSBA saw the inflation situation in building buildings and basically said, okay, so now we're closer to 600, I'm throwing out a number, but it's well over $600 a square foot, and you're building at around 1,000, give or take. So your reimbursement actual number gives us a benefit to the project as well. Others? There?
What is the current enrollment at the Wilkins in the south, and what is going to be?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So in 2 years, we've gone from 253 students in this building to 293 students.
We're at 315.
315, okay? Sorry, wrong number. So what does that tell you? This is one of the fastest growing parts of town. The turnover is real. The Wilkins has 330. And we're redistricting. By the way, we're redistricting regardless of the vote. If the taxpayers voted down, we are still redistricting. We do not have space at our schools. We're going to have to figure out redistricting, and I hate to use that word modular, but at some point you may have to think about that as well. And that growth does not include any discussion on the migrant situation. Just leave that out to the side. We're talking literally the town as a school community is growing. Yes, sir. And then over here.
The slide indicated that the buildings are PV ready, but in the video it looked like they've got solar panels on them. What's the story there?
It's still a discussion because you might understand that schools, districts don't pay taxes, so they don't get advantage of the solar energy tax credits. So oftentimes there are these third-party entities that do take advantage of the tax credits that in essence rent the roof. They supply the PV panels, and they can work an agreement where the school, through what's called a power purchase agreement, has a lower electric rate. So the school gets the advantage of lower electric rates. The third party has the advantage of the tax credits on their, for-profit business. So we didn't want to say that, the town is going to own the solar panels, but we do want to show that the roof is ready for them, and we intend to continue that discussion on what's the best way to procure them.
Okay. Bob?
Your plans, Mr. Recupero did the high school, and he came in on top. He did.
I didn't do it.
Yes, you did. You did, Tom. Don't not take, you took the credit. You also got a 1.2 interest rate a year earlier. We caused that, we put it in the bank, and it paid for everything. Matter of fact, we had a surplus. You told me that there's 645 children at the present time. If we left room for expansion in this school, I know we talked about the high school, and we got room, I don't want to hear in 3 years we did to add on.
We have to.
Do we have any idea?
We have to have, every plan has to have some place where they reserve space for future addition.
Same thing with the high school.
It's not just for an addition, but within the target enrollment of 515, let's see if I can go back here.
Site plan.
We're talking 645 according to the numbers we got tonight.
The stated enrollment is 515, but the actual plan, if you can see that right there, there's room for an addition right there. Here,
I think you have
It
another one
it
up
could
there.
be. But even before building any addition, the plan itself has flexibility to grow. We're trying to live within the MSBA regulations, but the classrooms, for instance, are designed for like 18 students or 20 students. You could put 22, you could put 24 in there. So without building any more, you could get up to
You
600
didn't answer my
students.
question. How many students do we have if we had to expand this? The numbers we just got is 645 growing. How many, if we had to put kids in the school, how many more can we put in?
So this access point has space for three floors of more classroom spaces.
How many students?
Well, how many students is all going to depend?
6 more classrooms, 120.
120 more kids. That's 6 more classrooms times 20 each. Or even if we went with our tradition, which we'd like to go with 18.
Not to
What is the
talk
current
negative. But in 2 or 3 years, the way we're going here, we're not talking immigrants, we're almost 100 a year. We'll be back looking for money to add to this school.
You
Remember
more than-
one thing, you have a lot of senior citizens living here. And tomorrow night, you're gonna find out how much it's gonna cost.
The town was on your side at the beginning of this project, trying to, advocate with
I
MSBA
agree.
to get the project a little bit larger, seeing this kind of
This
bulge
school,
coming.
this school has been neglected for years. There's no question about it. I was here, 52-year-old boiler still in that room. It still is there. How do we update that? Wires on the wall could have been tucked up. So you're telling me the maintenance of this building has been poor, very poor. And if you want, I'll take you for a walk, and I'll show you some things. And I've been in the electrical business for over 50 years, so I can show you a lot of electrical things.
So, Bob, the biggest thing with the MSBA is they set the enrollment for the
I
kids.
understand that.
So to speak to what you just said, Stoughton High School is built for 1,080 students. Stoughton High School currently has 1,126. In 2034, our community is projected to have 1,440 students at that current high school.
I just want to let you know, I'll probably be 95 years old.
I can tell you right now, if you're still here, that'd be great.
So I'll be looking over you.
Yes, I'll probably be gone by then, you're right.
No, I'll be gone.
I just don't want to be buried at the same place as you. I want somebody to sit quiet after I'm gone.
I remember you as a fresh kid.
So when you look at this, though, seriously, when you look at this, every project, this is my 5th MSBA project, my 3rd new school renovation project, and the numbers that we want as taxpayers, and we are willing to say, can we just do this once and get it done for the next 50 years, is never the number that we get. It's never the number that we get. And those projections are done by them. They use a very conservative model to count how they get there. And everyone who has a new building, or even a renovation like I did in Norton, the next thing you know, there's 100 more kids in the building. So you're at 700 even though you're building for 600. And same thing's happening here in Stoughton and will probably happen with this situation. The long term for us is not necessarily adding to this building. It's actually a reno or an addition at one of the 2 younger schools, the Dartmouth campus. In the back, yes.
You did have the middle school a couple of years ago. Why building middle school?
Yeah, so the middle school it's a big issue. So we would have to go through the statement of interest, but at the same time, the school committee is going to have some real discussions on putting some capital improvements into that building now, without a debt exclusion or any of that. So some capital items that I needed. We're currently working on asking the town meeting members to continue the vestibule changes and upgrades at the schools. We've got 2 for this year, both the Jones and the Wilk 3 and the Wilkins and the O'Donnell Middle School, which in general gives you two ways in, if you will. You got to be let in twice before you can come in, cameras, all that technology, all that stuff. We'll continue to probably I will put together through the team, to the school committee, a capital line item for the O'Donnell Middle School. We need to spend some money down there over the next few years, and I'll tell you why. There's a lot of question marks about ability to pay, afford, so on and so forth with this project. You don't want to know what the cost of that O'Donnell Middle School is going to go when it comes up. It's significant. It's significant. I will tell you, the kids go in there. I have a superintendent's advisory group made of 6th to 8th graders that I meet with about every 6 weeks over lunch and ask them about, how's it going and all that stuff. And they're the first ones to tell you, can you put some paint on these walls, please? And so I've been hearing them, and I'm going to put together a plan that we do some of that. The budget is tough this year, but we'll put something into it. But we have things like shades. You drive up to the front of that building and the shades are all broken, right? Because why? Because the shades have been there since I was there. Right? So, they're falling apart. We need to invest strategically, conservatively, and appropriately in that school so that we can get out another 10 or 12 years before the school committee is saying to the taxpayers, okay, high school is off, right? That let's say $400 a year from the high school is off. We still got X number of years for this school, but now we're going after what would then be our last new construction, which would be OMS.
Right? Adding on to what you said, the school lighting around the perimeter of your schools at night are terrible.
Don't
And
disagree.
I can tell you that Chemung, the Wilkins, it looks like Dark City in the back.
We have a plan.
And I
we
just
have-
tell you, I'll give you a little secret, with light ends problems. Let me tell
I
you
don't
that.
disagree. It's a discussion that's already taking place.
And that's at every
the
school,
team.
not one,
Yep.
all of them.
That and outside cameras is the other thing. George here, I don't know if there was someone
Yeah,
else.
one other question, I don't mean to monopolize the thing. In one of the slides, the cost per person or family was roughly $400 to $420 a year. Is that for X amount of years? What is the estimate? 1 year, 2 years,
That's-
10 years?
That's based on 20.
Say that again?
That's based on 20.
20 years, $420 a year?
It's an estimate based on the town's current borrowing rate, bond rating, and what we think rates will be at the time borrowing starts.
All right, so if you're taking a look at a slide that says, if I can read it from here, approximately $66 million, is that right?
Yes.
That's the town's share. What would that project out to be as with current interest rates? If we had to borrow, say, the $66 million today, what would it approximately be totally?
Mr. Cooper, I just checked that today. It's either low fours or high fours. That is today's interest rate today.
Yeah, the one that this is calculated was based on a number I got that day as we put this in, so it's not all that far off.
And remember one thing, when you borrow, you have to borrow the full amount to pay this.
No,
We did it in
No, no,
high
no.
school.
No, we have to appropriate the full amount.
You appropriate the
We
full
can
amount.
borrow in tranches.
But we did get a commitment
Yeah.
for 1.2 for the high school,
Yeah.
which, but knowing the interest rate, well, we have to look at a very important things. There's a lot of senior citizens in all homes here. And $450 or $410 is a lot more. Then put on water, sewer, and remember, we're gonna hit a debt limit, or we'll know that tomorrow night, of how much we can borrow.
But
We have a high school fire station,
We know that already.
oh, you know all.
We've been tracking that since this project began. We've gotten updates from Hilltop Securities based on that.
Okay.
So this fits within that number, then the question comes down to whether we should pay for it based on affordability. Because we can borrow it.
Well, they based
The question
everything,
is
when I
whether or
talked today, they based everything on a 30-year debt exclusion.
And if you don't have a debt exclusion,
Yeah.
then you're hitting operation, right?
They may have done that based on a 30-year, this
Yeah.
was calculated based
Yeah,
on
I'm
a
just
20.
saying that these are still very raw numbers. So
Right.
I'm just, they can change.
Yeah, Bobby, I'll say this in for you to George too. The one thing that I feel confident about, with absolutely nothing but my own certainty to base that on, is we came $5 million plus or minus, more plus than minus, under budget on the high school. I'm really confident that we can do that here too. And we were team gold when we shot for team silver. We exceeded everything where we could on that project. I'm confident we'll do that on this one too, and that's the best we can do. Because we can't make it more affordable. This is what schools cost in Massachusetts.
Question there?
Hi. But my question is, or like my concern is, the actual, like this gentleman here was talking about the land itself, the actual land before anyone does anything to it is wetlands. And also, very potentially could be just filled with, ledge. And, because, okay,
We studied that.
but it's right, okay, because when they did the fire department, which they're working on now, I listened to 4 months of blasting, and that's a lot of listening to blasting.
There's some ledge here.
Yeah, so it's good, it may be a lot more work than what we're even looking at because of the ledge, this
You're building
building.
bridges over streams. I mean, the
It's,
streams back there, I don't even know what
Right.
it is.
it's the way to get in. It's the way to get in. And honestly, if all things considered, if we had another parcel somewhere else, we might look at that more favorably. We looked at other parcels. We looked at a dozen other parcels. or what would be better. That's part of the feasibility study process.
But that's what, I mean, from personal experience, I mean, there might be a lot of ledge there. And, because it was very, a very long 4 months listening to blasting.
Well, thanks to sort of town meeting's generosity, you did, appropriate $1 million for this feasibility study and schematic design to date. Part of that money went to go to investigate the site. So we've had people out there who are drilling so-called borings to see where the ledge is, to see what kind of soil it is, to mark where the wetlands are and so forth. So we've had a very extensive survey, not just topographic survey, but soils and wetlands and so forth, so that included in this cost is allowances for that. So it won't be a surprise to us once we get out there and start doing the work.
Last question. Oh, okay.
Traffic study on 27, have you done that?
Yes, we have. On a preliminary basis, we've done the traffic counts there and looked at the access to the driveway. We're waiting this next vote coming up to take it to the next step and actually do the design of the intersection and the justification for a traffic light there as to what kind of light. Is it red, yellow, green all day long? Is it just a flashing light? Is it, a timed light that's only red, yellow, green at morning arrival and afternoon time? So we do have a traffic engineer on our team, and we've done, as we say, the preliminary traffic counts already.
Can you put that
So,
on the website for us?
sure. If it's not there already, there's a lot of documentation that gets buried at the back of some of our reports. But
And
we'll make sure it's
don't
there.
forget that that's a state road, so they're gonna have a play in this on what happens. And as someone who's done state roads, they have a lot of play that they're going to. Peter, and then the gentleman in the back.
First of all, I've got a ton of comments. Anyone that knows me, I have a tendency to make it short, sweet, and wrong. But
Remember, we still need to do a tour, Peter. We're still doing a tour.
Here's the main concern of people. I spent a lot of time today. I never get involved in this finance stuff because that's not my bag. Okay. I had wonderful conversations with TJ, with Mr. Byetta, with people on the finance committee. Okay. All I see here, thank you first of all, the committee, the building committee, the trust that I think we all have in Superintendent Byetta. He has open communication. Okay. I was a one-man show against the fire station. I'm not supposed to talk about the fire station. I asked people, they had a wonderful presentation just like this. And they told us that it's on time, it's on budget. Unfortunately, I guess we just take their word. Is that how you do it in politics? All I want to say is politics is all about trust. I trust this guy, okay? I want to know, since I was on school committee in the late 90s, 94 to 98, this place was a disaster then. We got explained already why the high school moved up. TJ gave me that explanation. Then I brought up the question of, well, why can't we build just the South School out by the ball field? I walked up there the other day. There's a ton of land, right? And I was told there would have been plenty of land for everything. Okay? We had the unfortunate Public Safety Building Committee together for how many years that we couldn't come to an agreement because of the school. So now we have the school land that we want to build on. Okay? We have the possibility of, first of all, the exit on to Haynes Road. As soon as that comes up about the safety issue, we're going to have to go by Fano Drive. Okay? Because that was the Fano Drive thing that held up the whole project for the fire station that was supposed to be over by Park Street. So this is like a repeat of what happened. My question was, and I asked these guys about, I found out about that model school program because it was brought up previously by Selectman Carrara. Why can't we get an idea from one of the other schools? You guys explained it very thoroughly, right? And Mr. Byetta, Superintendent Byetta explained that whole thing. The MSBA is not really going for those. To me, it just seems like they have a lot of control over the things that you do, okay? And I don't know, we can't get away from that, I guess. I guess you can't get away from that. But the major concern, you heard the comments about why we building a Taj Mahal. All the facts that were brought up on the first meeting, and you're right, there was not that many people there in the first meeting, and the principals made their presentation. Everyone made their presentation. It's a wonderful presentation. And I think at least we might know the real facts on this one, and what the cost is gonna be, and it's gonna be voted upon. But the previous discussion, I talked about the fire station, when we did a virtual meeting, and it just about passed, okay, and I have the numbers at home for that. It was all virtual, and there was no one was gonna read the 162 pages in the town meeting book. So it got voted through, and we had the vote on February, so we could put it through, and the original vote was pretty close. And we're gonna do the same thing here. We're trying to trust that we're doing the right thing to the town, okay? The cost of, according to this, was 66 million is the portion of the town share. I asked Lieutenant Paez, well, you know, could we do this here for 66 million? He's given the reasons why not, because we need to get I guess the modern concepts in education that you guys presented. It all makes sense. So I'm so torn between saying no, but it's a cost factor. Go ahead.
Just as one of the things that I've been getting is the idea that this is being pushed through. This is exactly the same timeline as the high school project.
Okay.
In terms of town meeting, and then 35 days, there's a vote. And why? Because we have to meet the MSBA guidelines in order to be considered. Just imagine if the vote was done, as some have said, in November, you just increase the price on this project.
So I understand.
Right? Just because of the way
I
things are
understand
going.
that. I understand that completely.
And I'm sorry, the gentleman in the back as well, then I'll come to
Okay.
the bottom.
I have two questions. First, what are the plans for the Wilkins School and the South School after the new school is constructed?
Yeah, so there's a subcommittee that was put together to provide the school committee options for the schools. So the three options that are in front of them right now are closing the school, taking the preschool and moving it to the Wilkins, keeping the administration at the Jones, and creating a alternative middle school, high school for students who currently, potentially for behavioral and other issues, suspension, are going out of district. And
this is South School?
No, that's all at the Jones. This South School would be closed.
What would be the plans for the building?
The moment the school committee closes the building, it becomes a select board item. It's a policy on this, because the buildings belong to the town. They're the executives, if you will, on a day-to-day basis on how we run them and all that, but then the policy goes to the town. The second option that was on there was to actually the third option is to close the Jones and the South School. And then we'd have to figure the configuration of administration, but the Wilkins would still have the preschool. Universal preschool is coming. It's coming. It's just a matter of a few years. We're going to be educating any child from 3.0 to 5 if the parents want to put them in a preschool half-day program 2 or 3 days a week. It's coming. There's no doubt that the governor just gave money to cities to do that, $38 million to start that process. So we're going to need the space, one way or the other. The other option, and that would require potentially finding space for the administration. Then there's no option to keep this building, quote, open. It would be literally turned over, and then the second phase of that would be, what's it cost to take this down? It's not part of the project, it's considered a different site, unlike the high school. So that's where Plan B comes in. Second
And
question.
my second question is, what are the current class sizes for the Wilkins School, and what are the current class size
Yeah,
for
so
the South School?
the practice of Stoughton for many, many years has been to try to keep those K-5 classrooms at 18 students or thereabouts. We're well into the 20s in every single one of them. The Hanson School right now has the smallest class sizes, but in terms of our classrooms, not only because of the migrant situation, but prior to that, the hiccup that we had in enrollment. So we've gotten a double whammy of enrollment at the K-5 schools.
I guess I have a third question. What are your expectations of enrollment? You may have spoken about it before, but what are your expectations of enrollment in, say, the next 20 years in town?
Well, I think you're going to see an increase over the next 5 to 10 years, and then you're going to, typically what happens is you stable out for a while, and then you might see an increase again. That's traditionally been where we've been. We just haven't been seeing the numbers that we're seeing currently. And as you know, houses on the market are flipping overnight. So you have someone that's leaving, and you've got a family of 2 or 3 coming in.
Do you have an estimation of the quantity? They may say.
So right now, over 10 years, it's 15.1% increase. That's the number.
In 20 years.
And within 10 years.
10 years.
10 years. That's the projected NESDEC report. It's been done twice, once in the fall. When I got here, I instituted it once in this spring. We already started an increase of over 50 students just from the fall into the spring. By the way, if they're after October 1st, you don't get any money from the state for them. And the projection that they have is 15.1%.
So it's sorry to keep on it.
No, it's okay.
So that's approximately 3 students per class addition?
Yeah, we could be looking at growth of more than 3 per, depending on what our baseline is going to be. We'll create a baseline over the next few years. Based on that enrollment, we'll probably in some cases ask for teachers. The problem is I don't have a space for them. Kindergarten classroom, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. I just don't have spaces. You'll see when we tour this building how many non-classroom spaces we're utilizing, including the very room that you're in right now. Okay. And there was one more in the back, or was it Bob in the front? You're at your limit. You asked 3 already. I know. So what we'd like to... Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Noble.
The question I had is, you have 114,407,888. Total,
That's the total project. That's all in.
yeah. But shouldn't it be 113,407,888?
Yes, the question on the $1 million, that's already good question.
Yes, this is the total project budget.
Total project.
You've already appropriated $1 million, so at town meeting, you only need to appropriate
I
130.
figured I'd bring that up. Now, save $1 million.
There you go.
Mr. Nogan, the chair of the finance committee, just saved $1 million. That's on the $1 million for feasibility and all that. That's already included part of this, so your number at town meeting will be $1 million less. One last question. Yes.
Okay. What percentage does the MSBA get out of that? What percentage gets paid or like for their strategies, and what percentage gets paid to them?
That's the orange line there, the 47.2 million.
No, I'm talking about how much percentage does the MSBA get out of that grand total? Like, what are we paying the MSBA?
So you pay 1 cent on every
You pay
dollar
on your
in
sales tax. Yes, throughout the
Every
state.
time you buy something, 1 cent by statute goes into the MSBA fund for public schools.
So out of the 114, whatever, one
No, they
cent
get
out
zero.
of every, so they get quite a bit then.
No,
No, that's okay.
this is the cost to pay the contractors to build the building, to pay us as architects
What did
and
they get?
engineers.
The MSBA, what percentage or what did they actually?
They don't get anything out of it.
Then how can they get?
They get money, as Superintendent mentioned, from the sales tax.
They're a state agency.
So when you go to
They
the
get
store
money through the sales,
and pay,
and then
whatever
they
it is,
decide
5.5%.
to accept the project or not, and when accepting, they go through the process of enrollment and all of that, and then they say, based on, it's a 3-part formula, you get X% Stoughton. Easton, you get X%. Sharon, you get X%.
It's
All right.
actually a great system to fund public school construction. They get money every year on a regular basis from the sales tax.
Okay, so we can spend time together. We're going to tour the building.
These are all classrooms. The only classroom, this is an art room. Open it up to show you. Three sets of bathrooms in the building. It's very safe. It opens right up into the woods. Go right up, and there are no cameras back here, so we can't see. And this room door is not alarmed. So this is a classroom. It is currently broken into 2 classrooms. This is special education, one of the rooms, and ELL.
Honestly, I think about a little bit of work on it. Are they doing it? I think.
We are potentially doing up to 3 groups at one time in this space. I have every single space in this building is used. Every single space is occupied.
This is special ed?
This side is special education for younger students, and that side is English language learners. 3 years. Yeah.
You don't look old enough to be the principal.
Oh, well, I hear that often. If I shaved off my beard, you'd be really surprised. We can keep going this way. I'm just going to lock this door. This is one side is special education, the other side is English language learners.
I remember you from the Summer
So
Music
you
Concert.
can
at
see
the-
there's 3 teachers who are housed in that space.
Did we?
Yep, in that space, there's 3 desks. So I'll walk through, I'll kind of point out all of your spaces. This hallway all the way down is 3rd grade classrooms, 2nd grade classrooms. This is an art room. It's the only specialist that currently has a space, a permanent space in this building.
And probably won't next year.
And probably will not, because I'm opening up a class. So, well, we're gonna have to open a 5th grade class due to a bubble size. So I'm up to 60 kids going into 5th grade next year, 66. So I cannot have 2 classes of 33. That would be very big. Yeah.
Because I was gonna say, I thought you didn't have the room to.
You're gonna see who I'm kicking out.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to find some space for them.
How many levels in this?
She's up. All right. Well, we'll show her the space. How many levels? Technically,
Oh, I
it
think
is
we
all
counted.
it is all one level, but it's actually 11 different levels in this building.
When we did the addition renovation plan, because the way it steps up, by the time you're here, you can go across and be at a 2nd floor above where you started. It's 11 different levels, get you up there.
We did walk down, so this is 2nd and 3rd grade. We went to the bathrooms at the end. We walked right out into the woods. It is not alarmed like 21st century buildings are. There's no cameras in that area. I mean, it's just, this is the,
And this building is not ADA compliant
it is not ADA compliant at all.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for your patience.
I am sorry.
Dangerous.
Don't worry about it.
Dangerously.
We just get up and we go back
Yeah, I'm
out.
sorry.
All these tiles, by the way, when you see this size tile, those are all, they contain asbestos. It's not dangerous as long as they're in good shape, which most of these are. But if they start breaking up, or if you have to drill a hole or do any work, it takes, a special encapsulation and all to do that work safely. So that's part of the expense of renovating this building too, would be dealing with all the abatements necessary.
And there was a question about why wires aren't hidden. If you could see above this is all the wires that were put in. It's actually a false 2nd ceiling because the original building had higher ceilings. But that was closed up, from what I understand, 5 years after it opened. So, you'll see a lot of desk spaces in the hallways and extra storage. These were put in recently. This is because we're out of space in the classrooms for materials and supplies. I have specialists who work out in the hallways because they don't have formal spaces to work. So there are student groups, reading intervention, math intervention, things like that take place. This wing down here is swing A. This is kindergarten classes and 1st grade classes. They do have their own bathrooms. Also, you can see the low ceilings. That is, there used to be skylights here. I was told about 35 years ago they were covered over. It's very dark. It's always this dark. Because dark is part of the building. Because we cannot see the sun. I will show you a kindergarten classroom. All right. So this is just what a kindergarten classroom looks like. It looks sneaky, but there is 20 students in this class, which is pretty big. It's a pretty standard classroom. Just questions. We have an artifact air conditioner in the wall there. No, it does not work. What are questions on this? I will say the one thing, we do have technology in all the rooms, but you can see because of the cinder blocks, everything is not, it's just connected to the walls. Nothing is installed within the walls. You can actually see the original ceiling if you look up above there. So we lost about 5-6 feet of height in those hallways.
Why did they lower that?
From what I understand, in the either 60s, they were getting significant rain constantly through the skylights that were put in, and they could not repair it, so they just put it in the ceiling.
Okay, well, they had the skylights and rain was in the skylights, so I assume they sealed off the skylights, but why did they bring down the ceiling, the fall ceiling?
I was not here, but from what I understand, it was because it was beyond repair. That is what I understand from
What was wrong with it? The ceiling was beyond repair?
Yes, from what I understand.
Less energy, Probably less energy, yes.
Yeah.
So think of it this way, the Jones School, which is steam heaters, and the high school. it costs more to heat the Jones than it does the new high school, and the Jones is 1/5 the size of the entire high school. Think about that. My heating bill for one building is more than one that's significantly larger. It's just energy, it's just, you know, the windows, the roofs, the technology, all that stuff.
How's this room ventilated?
Only through the windows.
Yeah, there's 2 windows that open. Most of the windows, though, in this building look like this.
Not even glass, they're plastic.
How is this room heated?
It's with the steam heat. Yeah.
It's coming out.
It actually, the heat is pretty good. It is usually balmy and always feels like Boca in
Comes out
these
here.
rooms in particular.
So-called
very
unit
warm.
ventilation.
And the angle of this building also is something because of the sun. So what you'll see is that the sun comes in and these rooms become
Hot.
pretty significantly
Very
hot. So
hot.
if we're in June or in September and it gets to be 85, 90, you're pushing 100 in a room like this.
There's typically, I have to provide water bottles for most of the students in these wings and that wings because it gets too hot and it's uncontrollable. So only 2 windows open in here. So very warm. So the other rooms look very similar to this. And
See my
walk through. Again,
1959. Originally, then I think there was an addition in like 62.
The great white thing that had us, that's why they all look quite.
the classrooms on either end down here actually have doors that also open right up.
Concert.
And that's not the only one.
I think they were originally used as just an exit from the kindergarten classes. Yeah, but
That's why they crap. They couldn't get it up. Because they couldn't actually bring it up.
So I'm just gonna open up the nurse's office to show you if you've been to a nurse's office. This is a very, very small one. Usually we have sick kids sitting out on the bench because you can only fit 2 in here. Yeah, I'll leave it open. I'm gonna turn on the light so you can see. There's also a very, very small, awkward bathroom that you can check out as well.
I'll use my,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Faces the runway.
There it is. We also have a very bad leaking issue in this building. So you can see throughout the buildings, this is, we always find new leaks every time it rains. We have a lot of buckets that we use.
I didn't know it was this bad. I mean, I've never been in this school, I'm just saying. That's
The
why-
learning is great. The
That's
staff
why I
is
came.
awesome. The kids are great. The building is
That's why
not
I
in the
came
best shape.
tonight,
Yeah.
you know?
We're gonna walk into the next wing. This next wing stays a lot cooler. We have a whole other wing to explore.
Put that on.
Sure. Just email me or
I just had somebody else call me in.
So one of the things that I point out a lot is we're going to pass the cafeteria. The cafeteria does not house a full school's worth of students, so I cannot do full school assemblies. Its actual capacity is 300, so legally I cannot even provide space for enough for students and staff. This space here was a library and is now a half library and half offices for my reading and math specialists and interventionists. Sorry. The lights are also very finicky. Hold on a second. There we go. So this is, when I came here, I moved the library and it was the 5th move that the library had made in 7 years. So this has been here now for 2 years. It's back. It's a partial library. If you've been to any of the libraries in the district, they are 3 or 4 times this size. This will probably be taken over as a classroom if I need the space, which I probably will need. We're going to pass over there on the other side. That's 5 staff members have offices on that size of the space. We're going to go this way so you can see it. I'll open the door. And then if you look over here, you can see the gym. It is not regulation. It is very small. There is only one light source. It is those lights in the corner. I mean, those windows in the corner over there. So, this space also has very poor ventilation, so it gets very, very hot in the summertime in here as well.
It does.
Thank you. I will keep walking this way. Am I moving too fast for you?
No, you're good, you're good.
All right, good. All right. So if you peek in here, you can actually see there's 3 desks set up, but there's 5 workspaces in here. So this is for 5 of my staff members. They do not pull students to this space, but they need a workspace, and so this is the space for 5 adults in this building. When this building was built, there was no like SPED compliance for spaces for so counseling services, speech services, occupational therapy, which now provide an actual workspace. So there are 4 offices in this building, and it's 1, 2, and my office and the nurse's office. This was a storage closet. It was converted into a counseling office. I will show you. There's no window, but you can see the space. The nice piece is you can actually look up in the ceiling and you can see the nails used for the roof coming through the top.
From original construction.
From original construction. Bathrooms, this is the 3rd set of bathrooms in the building. There's often a line for the bathrooms because there's only 3 in this building, and I have 315 kids. Down here is 4th and 5th grade. This room here is what will become a 5th grade next year because I need the space. I have too many kids moving up to 5th grade. This is currently a sub-separate special education program, and then on the other side houses occupational therapy and special education. Hold on, if you will keep walking, there you go.
How many total classrooms do you have in school?
17 currently operational classrooms, and then an 18th special education program. So the way we are splitting this space is we have movable walls. Any questions on anything so far? And then again, like I said, the rest of the hallways are for this grade. The doors also non-alarmed go right out to the
Special
lower.
education, yeah, and occupational.
This is basically the whole building. This is the lowest level of the building in terms of, what is it?
Stories?
Grading?
Yes, grading, thank you, because there are 11. Is there any questions about anything that I showed you? Questions about how we're using space? As you can tell, there's no more space since I'm converting storage closets. I'm converting 1 more this summer. It's half that size. It's going to be used for the physical therapist.
Do you
So
have security here in case somebody comes in, one of these unalarmed?
I lock the doors.
Oh.
That's all I can really do. They're locked all day, which is my compliance. We do the best that we can with the space that we have. I have some video coverage from what they were able to put into this building.
Camera.
Yeah, there is a camera here, so you can see that camera. I mean, there's as many as they're able to do in this building. But, in a modern building like those would be alarmed. They would also be like scannable probably, so people could get in. Like right now, you can see I have a key for one door, a key for the other exterior door, and then a key for classrooms.
How do you
So-
handle fire drills?
What do you mean?
How do you move kids around in this building?
So we have a pretty comprehensive fire drill routine that we go through with the students every year, and as they migrate to different. The nice thing is the setup is wing A, right, kindergarten and 1st grade, you have 2 years of the same type of routine procedure, place that you go. You move to wing B, 2nd and 3rd grade, routine procedure, place that you go. Wing C, routine procedure, place, all different, but you learn that when you move to those spaces in the building. But they are safe, they're very safe. Again, my experience was, I taught for 9 years in Chelsea, so I can empty a 3-story, 600-person building in 4 minutes, if I need to.
I'm just wondering because the door is locked with keys.
Yeah, so those push open to
They
go
always-
out,
they're
but then
always
from the
open from the
outside, you
inside
can't get
going
into
out.
them.
All right.
It's coming back in.
It's just tough because they get sticky. They're old. These are the original doors on both sets of building exterior. This area that you're standing in is 5 years younger than the rest of the building. The fun thing we found out really quickly, and I'll tell you, is these. I found this out this year when we had a power outage day. Those lights, do not light these hallways when it is dark.
they're not bright enough for that. And two, the battery power is only 90 minutes. So after 90 minutes, you're just plunged into darkness. So that is, yeah, it's not great. And that was during daylight. So, yeah. Question?
So how the lights are on.
replace them with LEDs for now.
The whole student body at one time?
Yes, they're able to do that. But she's here very early. I think she starts at around 6:15 prepping, and then she runs through. We require 3 lunches currently. So when I took over here, it only required 2 lunches for the student body. It was 237 students the first day I started. We're at about 100 more now. But yes, she's able to do it, but it takes more time and more lunch periods. But yeah. Even if I wanted more tables, I can't fit them.
So you're like an A, B, and C lunch?
Yep.
The exterior too, the provisions here are, sort of similarly undersized for even the relatively small population that's here.
So, fun part is when I have a full staff, because I share several staff members in buildings, I can't accommodate everyone for parking, so they have to kind of make their own parking spots, or I have to open up the basketball court to park on, and that's just for staff members. And then when I have events, I'm now limited to only 2 grade levels per event. So like when I do a winter concert, it's 3 winter concerts times 2 events
have
because
enough
there's
parking.
school ones and then there's parent ones. And when I do parking, it goes onto all the main streets over here, the entire basketball court, that cul-de-sac over there, and then down the other way. So it's not ideal. I don't think the neighbors love us when we have those events.
How long have the roofs been leaking?
Quite some time, since I got here.
Has there been attempts to fix them?
Yeah, every year they go up and they like repatch, but it
Just doesn't
water
do it.
finds, what's the expression? Water,
Travels.
yes.
Yeah.
Path of
So I
least
mean, literally, it's kind of, I kind of joke every time, but what I've said to Carl before,
Overwhelming amount of rain.
every time it rains, we find a new leak source. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, roofs are replaced periodically. How come this roof hasn't been replaced?
It has been. And it's more than just, I think there's been work done on on all the roofs. I know there's constantly people up on my roof all the time. Like the town does, I mean, the building department does a good job like coming through and fixing the problems.
Patching,
But,
I mean, a complete replacement.
well, I think that's a significant
the-
cost.
That's probably the prototypical Band-Aid approach. When a building like this has been submitted to the state for a capital project, either a full-blown renovation or a new school, that the district will say, well, rather than spend, I don't know, $1 million to replace the entire roof and insulation and all that, when there's gonna be torn down or abandoned or, so they try to make do for a couple of years until a new school comes online.
I'm definitely gonna ask that question about when the last time the entire roof has been done. It's definitely been some time though.
We have some records, it may be in the documents
Yeah.
that we've filed.
I know
forget now.
they are constantly patching, even like every time I report that there's rain. But yeah, it's like a significant amount. We had a student taking a test the other day during the rain, the state test, and it just started coming through onto his desk.
Mold, potential for mold and all the water?
I would assume so. I don't have an answer to that question. That would be a buildings and grounds question, but
Sure.
I would think when there's rain over that amount of time, potentially.
Yep.
From what I understand, everything that's been tested on this building is safe to operate in. But that doesn't mean it's the most ideal. Any other questions?
I have a daughter who's starting here in kindergarten.
That's exciting.
It's scary now that I see what the
So-
room looks like.
Yes.
So neither kindergarten has any sort of air conditioning.
No, there are 4 air conditioners in this building.
Are parents able to bring in an air conditioning for the school to use?
So I'll be honest with you, I don't know if our electrical system would actually allow for that amount of energy to be used in this building. That is actually what I've heard before.
Okay.
I've shut down the building when I've run all of them.
Okay.
But this is a very high-performing school. The teachers are wonderful. The kids are great. The curriculum's awesome, and we have an amazing time here. I'm okay too.
I have a daughter with health concerns, so
Okay.
that's,
Well, we can definitely talk more and
Okay.
have a health plan and all those
Yeah.
things. But and again, like this has existed this way for some time. So we do the best that we can with the space that we have. But Nurse Kaplan's going to be your best friend,
okay,
and me.
okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions as we're walking up? Happy to answer anything you have.
Massachusetts, as we do work in some other states. Massachusetts is looked at as kind of a model. In terms of school construction, both the way it's funded and the way they're standard. Pretty reasonable and all. Because it's relatively new. It's been around for 15 years or so. And our firm was doing schools even before that. The state was good enough to invite us and other architects in to advise them as they were putting the regulations together. So we think they're reasonable and appropriate, and the state thinks they're, suitable from their point of view too. It's a good balancing. So.
Yeah, so what we do is,
That award, they get a token to use instruction machine. So every month, I have about 56 students who get a book, and then we use funds to just like restock the machine and high interest text. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. They come with a reading specialist, and they get to like pick their book and put it in.
Accept donations, monetary or books?
Monetary gets a little hairy, but books absolutely. We'll always take books. Yeah, sure, absolutely. That'd be great. Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Like our house or you don't get new property. We can find it.
We all have one of those machines, yep.
And that new
Yep, just grant funded. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely.
And now the value's like up over 800. So I'm looking at double of that I'll be there. But you're looking at people who.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming through. Happy to show the school whenever. Nice to see you. I think so.
I do, but I can't think of it now.
If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, okay? Yeah. Okay.
My kids in here. I know this school. I know around, but I have most of the afternoon tied up.
I haven't used it quite
It's not
often.
urgent, I'll email you.
Send me an email.
Okay, cool.
Just on the backside?
Yeah.
Take those sections.
Yeah.
Get in one day, stay using it, I think I might have.
No, the middle school, that's gonna be some.
Absolutely. Let me get those waters out of the way, so. Yeah, it's somewhat eye-opening. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming up.
Renovate John.
Já estão pagos.